Okay, so let's get right into it. For the longest time, the story of ballroom culture was really told in just one way. It's a powerful story, for sure, but as we're going to see, it's not the whole story. We're going to unpack how scholars have completely changed our understanding of this incredible world, shifting the narrative away from just survival and toward one of pure, unapologetic creation.
You know what I'm talking about, right? You've seen them. That sharp, angular strike of a pose, a perfect picture of defiance and glamour just frozen in time. It's the visual signature of voguing, the language that broke out of the ballroom and right into the mainstream.
And you probably know the sound too, those driving house beats that power shows like Pose or RuPaul's Drag Race. You know the incredible wit, the art of the read, the comeback of the shade, the just overall fierceness. It's all part of a culture that has deeply shaped our own. But here's the thing. What if I told you that for years, the academic world looked at this culture through a really specific and honestly pretty narrow lens, and that a huge shift in thinking has completely changed how we analyze its history, its purpose, and its power? That's the real story we're getting into today. So to really get where we are now, we have to go back to the beginning, to that first frame, the first major way scholars tried to understand ballroom. For a very long time, it was seen primarily as a culture that was born directly out of hardship. The year 1990, that was the year everything changed. It was a massive inflection point. You had two huge cultural events hit at the exact same time. First, Jenny Livingston's incredible documentary, Paris is Burning, gave the world its first real deep dive into the scene. And then, almost at the same moment, Madonna drops Vogue, and suddenly the dance is absolutely everywhere. And for academics, that documentary, it basically became the foundational text. Seriously, for years and years, almost every scholarly paper you'd read on the topic started with Paris is Burning. It completely set the terms for the entire conversation. And the story that came out of the film, the one that really dominated all the early scholarship, was this idea of a subculture under siege. The focus was almost entirely on the immense challenges the community was facing. Poverty, racism, homophobia, and the terrifying shadow of the HIV/AIDS crisis. In this view, ballroom was framed as a reaction. A beautiful and defiant reaction, yes, but still a reaction, a way to survive. But it wasn't long before people started to question this view. The brilliant scholar Bell Hooks pointed out something really crucial. She argued that the film's perspective was that of an outsider looking in. And she asked, is this turning the community's real life into a kind of spectacle for a different audience, and maybe missing some of the most important stuff happening on the inside? It was a question that planted a really important seed. And that led to the big question that would eventually change the entire field. Is a community just defined by what it's fighting against? Or is there something else going on? Something more creative, more proactive, more joyful? And this is where we get to the major turning point. A new wave of researchers, a lot of them from within the community itself, started to push for a new way of looking at things. A framework that didn't ignore the struggle, but also refused to be defined by it. And you can literally see this shift just by looking at the words people started using. We move away from a vocabulary of reaction, poverty, and tragedy, and we move toward words like creation, joy, and agency. The focus flips from what the outside world did to the community to what the community built for itself. This isn't just a small change in words, it's a huge change in perspective. The key idea here is this new concept, Black survival leisure. So what does that mean? Well, it reframes the ballroom not just as a refuge, but as a creative laboratory. It's a space where people were actively building their own affirming world where they could practice this joyful self-presentation that might have been dangerous anywhere else. It's about world making, not just world resisting. Okay, so let's make this real. Think about the famous house system in ballroom. The old way of looking at it would see it mainly as a response, right? A necessary safety net for queer kids who were rejected by their biological families. But this new framework, it sees something way more powerful. It sees the houses as alternative kinship structures. These are proactive, intentional, chosen families. The house mothers and fathers aren't just substitutes, they're leaders, they're mentors, building this incredible, sophisticated system of mutual aid and care. They were building a new kind of family totally on their own terms. And hey, just look at the dance itself. This was not a culture that was standing still. It was constantly innovating. You go from the clean, symmetrical, model-like lines of the old way to the mind-bending flexibility and contortions of the new way, and then boom, you get the dramatic, theatrical Vogue femme with its 5 core elements: the catwalk, duckwalk, spins, dips, and hands. This isn't just survival, this is artistry in constant motion. And of course, an energy that creative was never going to stay in just one place. The culture that was born in Harlem has since become a truly global phenomenon. I mean, today, ballroom has just exploded around the world. You've got these amazing, vibrant scenes everywhere from Western Europe to Latin America, all the way to the Asia Pacific. And what's so cool is that these scenes aren't just copying New York. They're adapting the culture, blending it with their own local traditions and realities, and creating something totally new while still honoring the roots. Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all interesting academic talk, but why does it really matter? Why is this shift from under siege to survival leisure actually so important? Well, it's about something absolutely fundamental. It's about recognizing agency over victimhood. It totally recasts the main characters of this story. They're not just people that things happen to anymore. They're active agents who created a culture, built their own institutions, and innovated an entire art form in the face of all that hardship. And because of this new perspective, ballroom is now, rightly, seen as this incredibly rich field for serious study. You've got dance studies scholars breaking down the evolution of the movements, anthropologists exploring the community structures, sociologists looking at its role in cities, gender studies analyzing identity. It's finally getting the deep, academic respect it has always deserved. So, when you boil it all down, here's the big takeaway. This new framework doesn't ignore the pain or the struggle, not at all. But it absolutely insists on honoring the community for what it created, not just for what it endured. It celebrates them as world builders and as profound cultural innovators whose influence just keeps growing. And it leaves us with a bigger question, one that goes way beyond ballroom. Just think about it for a second. What other stories, what other innovations, what other forms of pure genius do we completely miss when we only define a community by its struggles and not by its creations and its joy?